The scent of expensive cologne and judgment filled the air at La Maison, my father's favorite restaurant where he insisted on hosting his 60th birthday celebration. I adjusted my simple navy blazer, bought off the rack at a department store, and tried to ignore the way my sister Amanda's eyes narrowed at my choice of attire. "You could have at least tried to dress for the occasion, James," she said, smoothing her own designer dress. "It's Dad's birthday." I smiled and took another sip of water, letting her words roll off me like they had for the past 5 years. 5 years since I'd walked away from the family's precious investment firm, 5 years of building something of my own in secret, 5 years of being the family disappointment. My brother Michael arrived late as usual, but no one seemed to mind. He was, after all, the golden child, the one who'd taken my place at Kingston Investment Partners after I left. He kissed our mother's cheek, clapped Dad on the shoulder, and then turned to me with that familiar smirk. "Well, if it isn't the janitor," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Still cleaning offices at night, little brother?" I met his gaze calmly. "Building maintenance supervisor," I corrected. Though it didn't matter. They'd already written their own version of my story. Dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with my presence, but too polite to say it outright. "Let's order, shall we?" The waiter appeared with menus bound in leather that probably cost more than what my family thought I made in a month. I could feel Mom's pitying glance as I studied the prices, probably assuming I was calculating if I could afford my portion. "Order whatever you want, James," she said softly. "It's our treat," Michael snorted into his wineglass. "Of course, it is. When isn't it?" I thought about the documents sitting in my office safe across town, about the deals closing tomorrow morning, about the announcement that would air on every major network. But I just nodded and ordered the cheapest pasta on the menu. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people underestimate you just a little longer. The conversation flowed around me like I was a rock in a stream, present, but inconsequential. Dan talked about the firm's latest acquisitions. Michael bragged about his new Mercedes. And Amanda detailed her recent charity gala organizing efforts. Mom occasionally tried to include me with questions about my work situation, each one dripping with concern that felt more like pity. "You know," Michael said, cutting into his Wagyu steak, "there's still an entry-level position open in our compliance department if you're finally ready to stop playing around and get serious." I stirred my pasta slowly. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm good where I am." "Good?" Amanda scoffed. "You live in a one-bedroom apartment and work nights. That's not good. That's settling." "Speaking of settling," Mom interjected, probably trying to change the subject. "Have you thought more about going back to school? It's never too late to finish your MBA." I had to bite back a laugh. My real education had come from walking away, from learning how real estate really worked from the ground up, from building a network of people who saw value in actions rather than family names. "I'm learning plenty," I said simply. Michael laughed, that sharp, dismissive sound I'd grown to expect. "Learning what? How to mop floors? How to change light bulbs? Real estate is about power, connections, vision, things you clearly don't understand." If he only knew about the meetings I'd had that morning, about the towers rising across the city with my company's invisible fingerprints all over them, about the fact that the building we were sitting in right now was one of my recent acquisitions, purchased through a holding company that even our family's precious firm hadn't managed to trace. "Maybe," I said, taking another bite of pasta. Dad sighed. That heavy, disappointed sound I'd heard so often. "James, we're just worried about you. You had such potential. Top of your class at business school before you dropped out, fast-tracked to partner at the firm. Everything laid out perfectly. And you threw it all away to what? Work as a janitor? Building maintenance supervisor." I corrected again, more out of habit than hope they'd listen. "Same thing," Michael snapped. "You're cleaning up after people who actually matter. After people like us." I checked my watch, 7:58 p.m. The news would break in exactly 2 minutes. I took a slow sip of water and waited. "Your father's right," Mom added, reaching across to pat my hand. "It's not too late to turn things around, to be part of the family properly again." The restaurant's background music suddenly cut out, replaced by the familiar jingle of the evening news. The massive screen mounted above the bar, usually showing muted sports games, flickered to life with a volume of breaking news. The anchor announced, her voice cutting through the dinner crowd's chatter. "In what's being called the largest real estate acquisition in the city's history, mysterious company Summit Horizon has just revealed its ownership of 12 major downtown properties, including." I watched my family's faces as the list scrolled across the screen. Each property worth hundreds of millions. Each one acquired quietly over the past 5 years while they thought I was just scrubbing floors and changing light bulbs. "Who the hell is Summit Horizon?" Michael demanded, pulling out his phone. "How did we miss this?" I set down my fork and waited for the next part. The anchor continued. "And in a surprising revelation, Summit Horizon CEO has been announced as James Kingston, who reportedly built the billion-dollar empire while working as a building maintenance supervisor. The silence that fell over our table was absolute. 5 sets of eyes turned to me in perfect synchronization. I dabbed my mouth with a napkin and finally allowed myself a small smile. "Anyone want dessert?" I asked quietly. "I own the restaurant, so it's my treat." The look on Michael's face was worth every night I'd spent learning the real estate business from the ground up, worth every condescending comment, worth every family dinner where they treated me like a cautionary tale. Dad's hand shook as he reached for his wineglass. "James," he started. But for once, he seemed to have no words. I stood slowly, straightening my department store blazer. "I should go. I have an early meeting tomorrow. We're acquiring another property." I paused, then added, "Actually, it's one your firm has been trying to buy for months. Better luck next time, Michael." As I walked toward the door, I could hear the whispers starting, could feel the ripple of recognition spreading through the restaurant as other diners connected the news announcement to the scene they just witnessed. I stopped at the host stand and handed the maitre d' my card. "The Kingston party's bill is on me," I said, loud enough for my family to hear. "Make sure they get whatever they want for dessert." After all, I glanced back at their stunned faces. Family takes care of family, right? The morning after Dad's birthday dinner, I sat in my real office. Not the maintenance supervisor's closet I'd used as cover, but the top floor of Summit Tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city I'd quietly been reshaping for the past 5 years. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since last night. 27 missed calls from Michael, 15 from Amanda, 43 from Dad, 19 from Mom, and exactly 156 text messages, each one more desperate than the last. I scrolled through them while sipping my morning coffee. The same brand I'd been drinking when I worked nights. Old habits die hard. "James, we need to talk." "Dad, how could you keep this from us?" "Mom, this is a joke, right?" "Michael, call me back." "Amanda." The last one had come just minutes ago. "Family emergency meeting at the firm. 9 a.m. Be there." "Dad." I checked my watch. 8:57 a.m. They'd be gathering now in the Kingston Investment Partners conference room, probably expecting me to come running at their summons like I used to. Instead, I turned to my laptop and opened the video conference app. At exactly 9 a.m., I sent them a link. My phone rang immediately. "What is this?" Michael's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "If you want to meet, we'll do it my way," I replied calmly. Click the link. One by one, their faces appeared on my screen. Dad at the head of their conference table, looking older than he had last night. Mom beside him, eyes red-rimmed like she hadn't slept. Michael pacing behind them, and Amanda perched on the edge of her seat, perfectly manicured nails drumming against the mahogany. "Why aren't you here in person?" Dad demanded. I leaned back in my chair, letting them see the city skyline behind me. "I have 3 other meetings this morning." This was more efficient. "Efficient?" Michael exploded. "You've been lying to us for years, playing some sick game, pretending to be a janitor while building maintenance supervisor," I corrected, enjoying how his face reddened at the interruption. "And I never lied. You just never asked the right questions." "James," Mom started, her voice wobbling. "We just don't understand. Why did you let us treat you like a failure?" I finished for her. "Like someone beneath you? That's exactly why." I pulled up a document on my screen and shared it. "This is a transcript from the family dinner 3 years ago when Michael announced he was taking my position at the firm. Would you like me to read your exact words, Dad?" He paled slightly. "That's not necessary." Thank God Michael stepped up. I read anyway. He understands what it takes to succeed in this business. Unlike some people who just didn't have the stomach for real power, Amanda shifted uncomfortably. That was a long time ago. 2 months ago, I continued switching documents. At Cousin Sarah's wedding, Michael told everyone I was finding myself through menial labor. Last Christmas, Amanda suggested I might qualify for low-income housing assistance. And just last night, you all sat there assuming I couldn't afford a meal at a restaurant I own. "We were worried about you," Mom protested. "No," I said quietly. "You were comfortable with me failing. It made you feel better about yourselves." I pulled up another document, this one showing a list of properties and their values. "While you were pitying me, I was learning how real estate actually works. Not from the top down, but from the foundation up. I know every inch of my buildings because I've worked in them. I understand the staff because I was the staff. And I built relationships with people you wouldn't even look in the eye." Michael snorted. "Is that supposed to impress us? Anyone can get lucky with a few property deals." 17 properties. I cut in all prime downtown locations. Total portfolio value as of this morning, $3,200,000,000.0. And I smiled slightly. "I just acquired the Carson building." The color drained from Michael's face. "That's impossible. We've been negotiating that deal for months." "I know. I watched your team bungle the negotiations while treating the building manager like he was invisible. Funny thing about invisible people, they notice everything. He called me personally last week to accept my offer. Dad leaned forward, and I recognized the look in his eyes. It was the same one he used to give potential business partners. Calculating, measuring, looking for an angle. Son, he said, his voice taking on that smooth, deal-maker tone. Clearly, we've underestimated you. But now that we know what you've built, we can work together. Merge your holdings with the firm, combine our resources. No. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. What do you mean no? Amanda asked incredulous. I mean, no. I'm not interested in a merger or a partnership or whatever scheme you're already cooking up to get control of what I built. We're a family, Mom pleaded. Family? I laughed softly. Yesterday, I was the embarrassment you had to explain at parties. Today, I'm family? I pulled up one final document. This is today's schedule for the Carson building. The Kingston Investment Partners office lease expires in 60 days. I won't be renewing it. You can't do that. Michael shot to his feet. That's been our headquarters for 20 years. Actually, I can. And I am. Consider it a reminder of what happens when you judge people based on appearances. I checked my watch. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with the mayor about the downtown revitalization project. A real meeting in person. James? Wait. Dad started, but I was already reaching for the disconnect button. Oh, and Michael, I added. Clean out your office by the end of the month. Some of us invisible people might need to mop the floors. I ended the call and sat back, letting out a long breath. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Sir, the mayor's office is on line 1. I straightened my tie, not from a department store at this time, and smiled. Put him through. And Sarah? Send a gift basket to the maintenance team at the Carson building. They're about to get some very angry neighbors. As I picked up the phone, I glanced at the framed photo on my desk. It was from my first night as a maintenance worker, mop in hand, name tag crooked. The man who'd taken that photo, my first mentor in the building, had taught me more about real estate than any business school professor ever had. Sometimes, he told me, you have to look up from the ground floor to see how high you can really build. I'd built higher than my family ever imagined possible, and I was just getting started. The next 2 weeks unfolded exactly as I'd expected. My family, never once to accept defeat gracefully, launched a campaign to either discredit me or force their way into my success. First came the rumors, whispers in country club lounges about how I must have acquired my fortune through questionable means. After all, how could a janitor build $1 billion empire legitimately? I was reviewing acquisition proposals in my office when Sarah buzzed through. Your sister's here. She doesn't have an appointment. I glanced at the security feed. Amanda stood in the lobby, designer handbag clutched like a shield, looking uncomfortable among the maintenance staff. I'd invited to use our first floor cafe. Send her up. When she walked in, her eyes widened at my office. No doubt she'd expected something less impressive. The space probably made her firm's executive suite look like a storage closet. Nice view, she said, trying for casual as she sat across from me. Though the furniture's a bit minimal, I looked at my deliberately simple desk, chosen because it matched the one used by my first supervisor in maintenance. What do you want, Amanda? She pulled out a folder. I've been going through some old family documents. Did you know that technically, as the oldest, I have a claim to? Stop. I held up a hand. The trusts? The ones Dad set up when we were kids. I liquidated my share 5 years ago, used it as seed money for my first property acquisition. You can't claim what I don't have. Her face fell. But that was only $2 million. I finished. Yes, amazing what you can build from that when you actually understand value from the ground up. That's not fair, she snapped. We didn't know that I was capable. That's exactly the problem. I stood and walked to the window. How's Michael handling the office move? She flinched. He's struggling. Dad too. That building was their legacy. No, I corrected. That building was their comfort zone. They're not angry about losing an office. They're angry about losing control. They sent me to offer you a deal, she admitted finally. Of course they did. Let me guess. They'll stop spreading rumors about my business practices if I lease them back their office space. Her silence was answer enough. I turned back to face her. Here's what's going to happen instead. You're going to leave here and tell them that their threats are as ineffective as their business strategy. Then you're going to watch as I acquire the Wilson portfolio next week. Yes, the same one Michael's been chasing for 2 years. How did you know about Wilson? I smiled. Because I own the building where your firm holds its confidential board meetings. And unlike you, I actually talk to the maintenance staff. They hear everything. Just that my phone buzzed. A text from my head of security, Michael Kingston, attempting to access lower-level archives. Right on schedule. Excuse me, I said to Amanda. I have to deal with something. Our other brother just broke into my building's maintenance level, probably looking for evidence of wrongdoing. Her face paled. How did you cameras everywhere? Would you like to join me? It should be enlightening. We took my private elevator down. When the doors opened, we found Michael being detained by 2 security guards, both former maintenance workers I'd promoted. Looking for something? I asked calmly. Michael struggled against the guards. You must have dirt hidden somewhere. Nobody builds this much this fast without. Without what? Hard work, understanding how buildings actually function, treating people with respect regardless of their position. I nodded to the guards. These men used to work maintenance with me. Now they run my building security because I saw their potential instead of looking down on them. James, Amanda interrupted, you've made your point. What do you want from us? Want? I laughed softly. I don't want anything from you. That's what none of you understand. I built this company by choice, not necessity. I worked maintenance by choice, not failure. I turned to the guards. Please escort my brother out. And Michael, the next time you try to break in, I'll press charges, family or not. That evening, I received an email from Dad. Son, your mother and I have been doing some reflection. Perhaps we were wrong about your choices. The firm is struggling without the Carson building, and your recent acquisitions have shown us that maybe we don't understand the market as well as we thought. I'd like to have dinner. Just us. No business talk. No deals. Just a father trying to understand his son. Dad, I stared at the message for a long time, remembering all the dinners where they'd look through me, all the times they dismissed my ideas, all the moments they'd chosen prestige over understanding. Finally, I replied, Dad, dinner is fine, but not at. Meet me at Joe's Diner on 4th Street. It's where the maintenance crews eat after night shift. If you want to understand me, start by understanding them and come alone. No Michael. No Amanda. No hidden agendas. James. The next evening, I sat in my usual booth at Joe's, nursing a cup of coffee. The door chimed, and Dad walked in, looking completely out of place in his bespoke suit. The regular customers, maintenance workers, security guards, cleaning staff, all looked up briefly before returning to their meals. Dad slid into the booth, clearly uncomfortable. Interesting choice of venue. This is where I learned my most valuable lessons about real estate, I said. Not in business school, not at the firm. Here, listening to the people who keep buildings running. He picked up the laminated menu, probably the first non-fine dining menu he touched in decades. I don't understand why you did it this way. Why not just tell us? Would you have listened? I asked quietly. Or would you have tried to control it, shape it into your version of success? He was quiet for a long moment. We thought we were protecting you. No, I said firmly. You thought you were protecting your image of what success should look like. You never asked what I wanted to build. The waitress came over, Maria, whose daughter I'd helped put through college with a scholarship from my foundation. The usual, James, she asked with a warm smile. Thanks, Maria. How's Jessica doing at law school? Top of her class, she beamed. Those books you sent really helped. After she left, Dad stared at me. You know their names, their stories. I know everyone's names, their stories, their potential. That's why I succeeded where you and Michael failed. You see buildings as assets. I see them as communities. Dad looked around the diner with new eyes, finally seeing what I'd seen years ago. Teach me, he said suddenly. I raised an eyebrow. Teach you not about business, not about real estate. Teach me how to see what you see. For the first time in years, I heard genuine humility in his voice. Okay? I said slowly. But we start from the ground up, literally. Tomorrow morning, 5 a.m., meet me at the Carson building. Wear comfortable shoes. What are we doing at 5 a.m.? I smiled. Walking through the building with the maintenance crew. If you want to understand my success, you need to understand where it really started. As we finished our coffee, I noticed Maria bringing over a piece of pie, my usual end-of-meal order. Add his to my tab, Dad said quickly, reaching for his wallet. No need, Maria replied. James owns the diner, has for 3 years. Never changed a thing. Just made sure we all had health insurance and a stake in the business. Dad set down his fork, finally understanding. I hadn't just built buildings. I'd built relationships, trust, and communities. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for not seeing you. Really seeing you. I know, I replied. That's why tomorrow, we start with open eyes. But Dad, this isn't about taking over my company or merging assets. Then what is it about? Learning that success isn't just about what you own. It's about what you build and who you build it with. As we left the diner, Dad looked up at the skyline. My skyline. You know, he said thoughtfully, I never really looked up from my office until now. I smiled. Sometimes you have to start at the bottom to truly understand the view from the top. The next morning, when Dad arrived at the Carson building at 5 a.m., he found me already there, dressed in my old maintenance uniform, helping the crew start their day. The look of surprise on his face was priceless, but the lesson was clear. True power isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about understanding every level of what you build, respecting everyone who helps build it, and never forgetting where you started. Even now, years later, I still keep my old maintenance uniform hanging in my office. Not as a reminder of where I came from, but as a reminder of who I really am. Someone who built success from the ground up, one floor at a time.